Well, hello there. My name is Craig Hane, and my students call me Dr. Dell. I have a PhD in mathematics. I've been teaching math for many decades. And this is a message to the leader or any parents involved with a homeschool co-op. Now, the question is, would you like to significantly improve the quality of the mathematics education you're giving your teenage students, let's say grades 7 up through 12? And probably, more than likely, lower the cost at the same time and make it much, much easier for everybody in the co-op, all your leaders, your parents, and everybody. If the answer to that question is yes, then continue watching this video because I'm going to show you how you can do that in ways using modern technologies that you probably will find hard to believe. Aren't modern technologies wonderful? Now, in order to do that, I'm going to share the screen. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take you to my personal webpage so you know who I am. Actually, I'm going to take you to, in a minute, I'm going to take you to Supercharge your tutorial or your co-op. But first, I'm going to take you to my personal webpage. Now, this is me, as I told you. And you can come up at the top here and you can see my Vita and see my story. And I've also got a video library of a lot of math videos that if you're interested in math at all, you may find very interesting. But more important than that, on my website, I want you to understand what you can do for your co-op. Now, to do that, I've actually written a couple of books to help you do that. And if you come down here and click on Get Your Free eBooks and click on that, you'll go here. And the first one I think you should read is what I call Golden Rule Math for All God's Children. I'm going to click on that. And this will be the PDF you'll get. Now, you can buy this book on Amazon. It's available already on Amazon if you want a hard copy of it, no problem. But here's a free PDF copy. Now, what this does, in probably an hour or two, you're going to really understand what you can do for any math student today. This is for any child, and it's all about how 21st century technologies and tools have revolutionized and transformed 21st century math education for all of our wonderful 21st century students. And I'm talking about transforming it from what I would call 20th century education using the older technologies. And it's much, much, much better. And this book explains that. Now, you go down to the table of contents and look at it. And the first thing you need to read is part 1. There's 4 chapters that tell you what are the essential ingredients of an optimal math program in this 21st century. You couldn't have done this, by the way, 20 years ago, but you can do it today. You couldn't have done it in the 20th century, but you can do it today. And you're probably still using a lot of the old 20th century tools. Chapter 1 is all about the pedagogy you should use. I call it SPIKE pedagogy. I made that acronym up, S-P-I-K-E, and you'll learn all about it. Proper content is equally important, maybe more important. They're both equally important. You must do both of these things in order to get the child, your student, in a good frame of mind or where they like math, they're not afraid of it, they want to learn it, and they can learn it very, very, I don't want to say easily, but pretty easy. I think of math as a sport, and you learn math like you would learn a sport. You have to learn lessons, practice, and so on. Now, you need to do this, you obviously need a teacher, and I will be your teacher, Dr. Dell. You also need a coach, and that's where your co-op will come in. Somebody in your co-op, maybe several people, will become coaches. Any parent can become a coach. The coach does not have to know mathematics, but they have to be able to deal with the students. And then chapter 1.4 is how to be a great coach, to be sure you know just what I'm talking about. Now, this part 1 is about 25 pages. If you read that, that alone will let you know what you need to know to offer an optimal 21st century math education, which I highly doubt you're doing it now, and you can. And also, you'll find out how you can do it so inexpensively with modern technology. Now, part 2 is a series of chapters on struggling math students. If you've got students that are struggling, and a lot of them are, read part 2. There's 4 chapters here that explain that. And they give an example and so on. Grace's story and that sort of thing. Part 3 is about successful math students. Let's assume you have students that are really successful with math. That's great, but how can they be more successful? And indeed, it's not uncommon for students to be successful for a while. Then they hit a math class they can't do well in, and they become a failure, and then they go forward. Now, that happened to me, by the way. You read my story. I did great up through 8th grade in math, thanks to a homeschool teacher I had, my Uncle Jack Davis. And then I didn't do well in algebra. And I was told that, Craig, you're not going to go on to college because you did bad in algebra. Then I had 2 great teachers that saved me. And then I went ahead and became good in algebra. I got a PhD, in fact, in algebraic number theory. But my story, and I'll tell that story in another book I'm going to show you in a moment. Now, what about students that are not college bound? And of course, there's a question, should you go to college or not? Well, I will show you the math they can learn if they're not going to college that will help them have a wonderful, high-paid, very satisfying career. What about students that are college bound? Then I'm going to tell you how you can go to college properly, the math you need for it, how to do it, and how to do it with no debt. You can go to a great college today with no debt. Now, if you happen to have a student interested in science and engineering, then part 6 on STEM students is absolutely something you must read. You absolutely have to read that. And there's several chapters in it. And one of them finally goes down. First of all, STEM students today can learn math much easier and apply math for science and engineering than they could up in the 20th century. In 2009, a fabulous tool was introduced to the world called Wolfram Alpha. Changes everything. And you need to read this chapter if you have a STEM student. I have some more chapters. One is invest in yourself, and you'll find that interesting. And then I have some actual applications of science and math that I throw in. One in particular is how science and math prove God exists. A lot of skepticism today from a lot of scientists and engineers and people, and it's all wrong. And science and math proves God exists. And of course, that then reaffirms what you can learn in biblical things like the Bible or the Quran or whatever. And then your action plan, what you should do. Now, that's the first book I want you to read. The second book I want you to read, so you really understand what's going on, is Public School Math is Destroying the USA. How and why? Now, you're probably, even if you're taking an online program or using a tutor, you're still probably teaching what is taught today in the public schools because that's what all the textbooks are that you can go buy. In my program, I don't use any of the textbooks today the schools use. They're all horrible today. They're obsolete. And I explain that. Now, in this book, I explain why that is. And then, of course, the solution, which you're going to be able to get for your co-op. And what I do, though, in part 1, I just talk about public school math in general, facts alive. Things that, what do you think about it? And I'm pretty sure you would agree with everything I say. Now, in part 2, I actually tell my story in depth. So you know who I am. Where did I come from? How did this come about? I want you to understand how and why this new program I've developed for you in Triad Math works. Part 2 gets into that. And part 3 goes into it even deeper. Now, in part 4 is where I explain what is wrong with public school math. And you can learn that in 4 chapters, 19, 20, 21, and 22. Those 4 chapters, if you just want to get right to the nitty gritty, go read those 4 chapters. That's what's wrong with public school and probably the math you're teaching your students. Highly probable that you're teaching some form of public school math, even though you're not in public school. And then in part 5, I tell you the 21st century solution, which is Triad Math, and I explain that, and then you can read all about it. Now, it gets better than that. You've got a website now that this video is on. Supercharge your tutorial or your co-op. And on this website, it explains it how you can do that. And by the way, I'm going to go back uh, to my home page and show you something else. You're going to ask at some point in time. I actually have several websites to talk about this. Triad Math Inc. is our corporate website. You can go to and learn all about our corporation, how we got started, what we've done, and so on. Workforce Math is another company we have that teaches the math you need for the workforce. And you go look at that and study that, and that math gets them ready for any kind of a technical career. I'm not talking about science and engineering now, just technical careers. And then you might, at some point, you're going to want to know, well, what is in your program? What's in your 6-tier program? It's a 6-tier program. And you can download the PDF here, and there it is. Here's everything you're going to get. The first thing you're going to learn is the student is going to learn how to use a TI-30XA scientific calculator. 16 lessons. And this, by the way, turns around the psychology of students that don't like math. They're afraid of math because it's kinesthetic. I use tutorial videos where I'm tutoring the students, short videos, 5 or 10 minutes off of Amazon Web Services. They got access to it 24/7. They can watch them, rewatch them, back them up, stop them. They control me as a tutor. And then there's notes and exercises that go with it you'll find out about. And I'll give you PDFs of them to print out, or you can actually get them printed out very inexpensively by Amazon. Here's a review of pre-algebra. They should know this if they're ready for the 7th or 8th grade, but I want to make sure they do, so we review it. Now, here's what you're not going to probably believe. In Tier 2, I teach practical math. This is the math they need for the workforce. This is basically what they get in workforce math. Guess what? In algebra, practical algebra is 10 lessons, and that's all. This is the algebra you need. This is the algebra I use to create many, many companies you'll learn about when you learn about me. Now, I have a PhD in math, and I know way more math than this, but this is the algebra I use. This is practical algebra, practical geometry. How long is something? What is the area? What's the volume? 19 lessons. Practical geometry. And you use algebra and geometry together now. They have to go together. But they can't solve all the problems you need in practical. They can't deal with angles. So you need trigonometry. Now, that scared a lot of people, the idea of trigonometry. Well, guess what? 7 lessons is all you need. And you know all the practical trig you need. Now, you're going to find out this Tier 2, algebra, practical geometry, and practical trigonometry takes most students only about 1 semester to go through. And when they get through this, they're going to know more mathematics than 95% of all high school graduates in the United States today. This is 2026. I'm doing this January 2nd, 2026. Now, if they are going to go to college, in Tier 3, I teach them additional math now they need to do well on the college exams, like the SAT and the ACT. And this Tier 3 takes most students about a year to go through. And this is for students who are going to go to college. Again, same thing, tutorial videos, notes and exercises, and a forum to ask questions if they need to. Now, they can get ready to do well on the SAT and the ACT. They're still not ready for STEM math. In STEM math, I go into Part 4. Now I go into all those subjects at a much deeper level for science and engineering. And what happens is I now use a modern tool, and I introduce that in A5, Wolfram Alpha, and I use it from that point forward. And now that makes pre-calculus math at a deep level much, much easier than it is the old way it's being taught now with all the books you've got. No comparison. You're going to be at absolutely, if you got anybody in your co-op that knows math, knows engineering and science, you have them study this. And when we do a Zoom meeting, we can talk about it, but they'll understand that. And this is so much easier. Now, this is pre-calculus. If you're going to do a science engineering, you got to do calculus. Calculus is what you use to analyze functions. There's differential calculus and there's integral calculus. Historically speaking, integral calculus, which applies the fundamental theorem of calculus, flunks more kids out of engineering school than anything else. Manually, it's very, very difficult. 8. With Wolfram Alpha, it becomes very easy, like 2. So you go from a difficulty level of 2 with a manual tool down to difficulty level of 2. And this is the way a modern scientist will do calculus. And it only takes 1 semester to learn the whole thing, differential and integral calculus. Now, never in high school do they teach differential equations. That's usually in college, second year in college, because of Wolfram Alpha, you can now learn differential equations in one semester in high school. I have students now that have gone through the 6-tier program and are better prepared for going to any good engineering or science school like MIT or Air Force Academy or wherever than any ordinary public school graduate from any ordinary public school because of this. And you don't have to be brilliant to do this. You just have to be reasonably good and work hard at it to do it. So that's what this is about. Now back to the website on public school math. Um, Whoops, I got to get to the okay. Back to the okay. Supercharge your math curriculum. If you go down through here, this video is going to be at the very bottom of this for you to watch. This talks all about our 6-tier program and tells you a lot about it, what's required. Now, we actually had a school, Grace Christian Academy, a couple of years ago used this. They've gone out of business since then, unfortunately. But Aaron Farley was the math teacher and the headmaster, and you got to watch his testimonials. And that'll let you know what you can do. Now, you also are going to get to have a free trial for your students and your parents and your faculty, if you have faculty, to see this. I have lots of testimonials. I'm going to send you a testimonial page, triadmathinc.com/they said. And I got tons and tons of testimonials from students, from teachers, from parents. But so what? The only testimonial that really counts for a given family, a given student, is your own testimonial. Did it work for you? And so to prove it, we'll give you free trials. Now to do that, you contact me, you email me, craig@hane.com, and say you're with the co-ops and and we'll have a Zoom meeting. And I'll talk about your co-op and what you're doing. We'll talk about make sure you understand what this is going to be. And you're going to be amazed at how inexpensive it is. It's going to actually blow your mind how inexpensive it is. In fact, I'll just tell you right now what it is. You can have access to, and this was the syllabus I showed you already, you can download. Oh, there's another thing that you'll want to watch here. Compare your curriculum, whatever you're doing now. If you got somebody, well, I'm doing something and they name a program, compare it to this. So you click on this, it's a PDF, and this lets you compare your program to Triad Math. So here are the things you got to ask about. Now, Triad Math checks every one of these boxes. See which of these boxes your program checks and which it does not check. And that'll let you know how what you're currently doing compared to Triad Math. And you can start out, Triad Math is so inexpensive, you can just start out using it as a supplement to whatever you're doing. And then my guess would be, I'm almost sure you'll end up switching over. But you may have a tutor now, a live tutor. You may be using Saxon Math or Matthew C. or teaching textbooks or God knows what. There's lots of programs out there. This is nothing like any of them. There's nothing like it. And so you can compare whatever you're doing to this. And if you can check all these boxes with whatever you're doing, then you're going to stay doing it. But my guess would be if you could check all these boxes, you're spending hundreds of dollars a month. Hundreds of dollars a month. I asked a co-op leader the other day, we're talking. I said, what do you think it would cost? And once she see all we could do, she says, she said, $100 a month would be a bargain. Guess what? $9 a month per student. And if it's a family with multiple students, $30 a month, and they get to put all their students, including the parent, in it. So this is an amazing program. Now, it's unbelievable. I'm pretty sure it's unbelievable and to you. But if you study the books I've given you and the website, and hopefully you've got somebody in your co-op that knows a lot of math. Maybe you've got an engineer or a doctor or who knows what. They can study all this and learn about it. And when you think you might be ready for your co-op, now you can just go sign up and get started. But we can have a Zoom meeting and answer any questions you have and make sure we set it up properly because I want to make sure you have coaches Coaches are important. They got to be, and I'm sure you do. If you got any math teachers, that's fine and dandy. This will actually help them. They'll learn a lot of math they don't know, more than likely, and it'll help them. They can become coaches and counselors too, if they're a math teacher. And by the way, I think that many of your parents will want to take at least the first two tiers. They'll just, if they can, they don't have to, but I think they'll want to. And as a matter of fact, if a parent has one student, that's all, and they want to take it themselves. And also, it's all in a learning management system. You find out, you know exactly what the students are doing. The coaches, then the parents can see exactly what they're doing, and so on. And so I've given you kind of a quick overview of what it's all about. And I strongly urge you, in fact, to be honest about it, knowing what I know, and if I was in your position, I believe in the golden rule. Treat other people as you would want to be treated. If I was in your position, knowing what I know, and I was in your position, I would definitely look into this and try it and prove it. Because just imagine that it turns out to be much more successful for most of your students than whatever you're currently doing. Just imagine that. To me, it would be a sin not to try it, not to at least read the books, study it, analyze, compare it to what you're doing, and then try it. It's risk-free to try it. I'm going to let you put some of your students in, some struggling students, some really good students, and some advanced students, and maybe a parent or two into the program. It's only $9 a month, and I'm going to put them in it and let them get started and prove it, and let them go for a month or two to prove it, and then they can pay for it if they want to. Or it's $99 a year. You believe that? You're going to have me as a tutor 24/7. Now, it's tutorial videos. It's not live, because I'm going to do this for thousands and thousands and thousands of students. As a matter of fact, wherever your co-op is, you're going to have, more than likely, unless someone else in your area is doing it, the far and away the best math education in that area. And other people are going to hear about it. Oh my golly, look what your co-op is doing. Oh, wow. And eventually, I want to convert the public schools into doing it. But right now, I can't do that because they got teachers unions, they got the book publishers, they make billions of dollars on their textbooks. It's crazy. It's the world we live in. Compare my math to a smartphone, to an old landline phone. Do you remember the landline phone? All you can do is talk on it. The smartphone, well, you can talk on it anywhere in the world. I have one of my colleagues, I have a lot of people working with me in our company. I got a guy in Norway right now, and we talk every day on the phone, and we do Zoom meetings to talk about what's happening. And then there's so much other stuff on it. Like you can ask a question and answer it, just on and on and on. Well, think of Triad math as like a smartphone, and think of whatever you're doing, more than likely, it's like a landline phone, comparatively speaking. Another analogy I use is imagine using the carpentry tools that were available in the 1800s. Those are the manual tools that math uses, and they're still teaching in the schools. Now, they're great tools manually. At their time, they were wonderful, but they're hard to learn. They're hard to use. Suppose you had to build something today, a house, and all you could use was the manual tools from the 1800s. Now compare using modern tools, all the modern tools with electronics in them. Just think of a drill. The old manual tools are brace and bit. The modern tools, electric drill. That's what this is like. Triad math is like the modern tools, the current curriculum. More than likely, what you're teaching your student, more than likely, is the old manual tools. Now, if you've got a program that's using a modern tool like Wolfram Alpha and using tutorial videos and all the things that I do, you can go through that checklist I gave you and find out. Then fine. And if it's only costing you $9 a month per student, great. Otherwise, check it out. So this is Craig Hane or Dr. Dell. I love students. By the way, the reason I do this, the reason I'm motivated to do this is because I love students. I'm not doing it to make money. We have to make some money because we got a lot of expenses. Obviously, we have a tremendous amount of technology behind it, and it costs money to deliver all this. In fact, I'm not sure we'll continue to be able to deliver for $9 a month per student. I think we can. if we get a lot of students doing it. And so we're going to find out. Anyway, Craig Hane, thank you very much for watching this video.